Tansei, good afternoon. I'm Creeson Agecoutay. Welcome to APTN National News. The Winnipeg Police Service released the findings of Project Surge, an initiative aimed at addressing youth violence. The service found that many of the youths they identified and arrested were repeatedly involved in police incidents. APTN's Sierra Bettens has more.
During a board meeting Friday, the Winnipeg Police Service released a report on Project Surge, tackling youth violence in the city. The report said the same 117 youth were arrested 435 times and were suspects or victims in 1,795 police incidents since 2023.
Even though there's 117, there's a whole, I would say the vast majority of those youth are only peripheral engagements.
These incidents included missing persons reports, serious assaults, weapons offenses, and some homicides. 519 of the 1,795 incidents happened after March 7, 2024, when the project was launched. Winnipeg Police Superintendent Dave Delisle is in charge of Project Surge. He says even though the same 117 youth kept showing up in the study, the number doing the most serious crimes was lower.
If we look at the youth within Surge who are creating the most harm in the community, the most violent, the most incidents, there are 30.
In spite of the numbers, Delisle says there's a light at the end of the tunnel if the whole community works together.
What that gives us an opportunity to do is go to government and say, it's not a problem that can't be achieved. There's 30 kids that we need to focus on to make a significant impact on youth crime in the community and get them on the right path because they need supports. They are victimized over and over again themselves.
Sierra Bettens, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Now here is this week's brand new web poll question. We ask, are you seeing an increase in youth-related crime where you live? Yes, no, unsure. Go to aptnnews.ca to have your say. After almost half a century in prison, former American Indian movement activist Leonard Peltier will have what may be his last parole hearing today. Amnesty International is urging U.S. authorities to grant the now 79-year-old parole on humanitarian grounds, given his age and very poor health. The hearing is today in Sumterville, Florida, where Peltier has been servicing 2 consecutive life sentences for killing 2 FBI agents in 1975 during a shootout on the Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota. The investigation and trial were riddled with misconduct, and Peltier has always maintained his innocence. 2 witnesses will argue that he be allowed to live out his final years on parole at home on the Turtle Mountain Reservation in North Dakota. 7 years ago, Peltier was denied clemency by outgoing President Barack Obama. After suffering through boil water advisories for years, a community in Saskatchewan came together to celebrate the beginning stages of building a new water treatment plant. Last week, Static Buffalo Dakota Nation held a traditional Dakota water ceremony for the new water treatment plant. The ceremony honors the water spirits while also acknowledging the people are stewards of the land and water. The new $14.3 million project will provide the community with a new water treatment facility as well as raw water wells. The facility is expected to be done in 18 to 24 months. Chief Roger Redmond says clean drinking water is a basic human right, and the government needs to provide funding to ensure everyone has safe drinking water.
By working with the federal government, they also want to co-develop legislation. Legislation is not going to fix the ultimate problem of plaguing our communities for clean drinking water. There's funding that needs to be attached.
To Ottawa now, where the National Indigenous Economic Strategy is now in its 2nd year, an Indigenous-led initiative which aims to achieve socio-economic equality for Indigenous people in Canada. At the Bank of Canada in Ottawa, NIES partners announced the launch of the National Indigenous Economic Prosperity Institute, which will monitor progress on the strategy's 107 calls to prosperity by collecting data on the Indigenous population, businesses, lands, and resources. Dr. Jacqueline Ottman is the president of the First Nations University of Canada. She says the Institute will play an important role in economic reconciliation.
the National Indigenous Economic Prosperity Institute will serve as a catalyst for change, promoting innovative solutions and fostering economic resilience within Indigenous communities and non-Indigenous communities. It will provide a platform for Indigenous-led research, development and implementation of economic strategies tailored to our unique needs and strengths.
Indigenous studies are an important part of a student's education in Saskatchewan, but an elementary school in Moose Jaw is taking it one step further, providing a classroom that's culturally appropriate. CTV's Haley Mandrick explains.
After spending time learning about Indigenous history and culture, students at King George Elementary School are putting their knowledge to use. A teepee now stands in the schoolyard, the final post and canvas set up during a school assembly, where students shared what they learned with the rest of the school and with us.
I learned that their culture is a very big thing in Canadian past, so that's why we do things like this and powwows and all that, because we don't want past to come back and hurt us even more. We've already had some damage done to us, so as long as we can keep that away from us with all doing this and teaching, then that would work.
And why is it important to learn kind of these things that you might not know already about Indigenous culture?
Because, well, like, if we might, repeat the past. Like, we don't want, the schools going back up, those, residential schools. That would be terrible.
Teachers at the school say the project was a chance for everyone to learn.
We know that it's important that our First Nations and Métis students feel that they are a part of our school and important here, and we want to learn alongside of them. So really, this was an inquiry project for all of us. We all learned something, and I think all of our staff and students benefited.
Along with raising the teepee and the accompanying smudge and prayer to bless it, students had the chance to see and hear performances from dancers and a drum group.
This has been quite a bit of planning and work, and we've learned how to put a teepee up, which is amazing, and it's a large teepee. So I'm just so proud of everyone. We came together, worked together, and that brought us to today.
Now that the structure is up, it is intended to be used as a classroom where staff and students will continue learning about the past, present, and future of Treaty 4 territory. Hallie Mandrick, CTV News, Moose Jaw.
A Métis icon has been honored with a new road. We'll tell you who and where when we return. We'll be back in about 3 minutes. Welcome back. A Métis icon was honored with a street naming ceremony in Winnipeg on Friday. Ray St. Germain sang his heart out to a crowd of friends, family, and Métis community members, celebrating his achievements. Our reporter Sav Jonesa was there.
With his wife Glory at his side, 83-year-old Ray St. Germain was honored by the renaming of his childhood street. The house that the Canadian icon grew up in, built by his father, now resides on Big Sky Country Way, named after St. Germain's long-running, award-winning show.
Well, I want to thank you all for coming down. What a wonderful pleasure. I didn't expect it to be this big. I really didn't. So many friends, so many relatives. Thank you so much for everything.
Known as Winnipeg's Elvis, St. Germain's legacy is one of musical artistry, Métis pride, and as a celebrated on-air personality of television and radio shows. Naomi Clark was St. Germain's co-host for 20 years on the radio show Métis Hour ×2.
He's got such a big heart. He's a beautiful person. He embraces you, and once he calls you friend, you know that's going to be a friendship for life.
She says St. Germain is a Métis trailblazer.
He was writing music that talked about the Métis community way before it was cool to talk about the Métis community. And, he's, like I said, he's been a trailblazer for so many musicians and just so many Métis to show their pride and be able to come out of the shadows, so to speak, and talk about their unique and rich history, right, as Métis people.
Before leaving, the soft-spoken St. Germain wowed the crowd the same way he has for over 6 decades. He sang his heart out. Sav Jonesa, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
That's great. There are plenty of pageants out there, but a new event is set to take the stage this year, giving Indigenous people from around Canada the chance to showcase their skills. CTV's Mick Fable has more.
A first-of-its-kind pageant is bringing 26 contestants from across the country for the opportunity to be crowned Miss Indigenous Canada. Over 700 people applied to be a part of the pageant. Of those who made the cut, 3 are from Saskatchewan, each hoping to be a positive representation of Indigenous people and their community. Alexis Ijnana is a member of the Standing Buffalo First Nation. In 2023, she competed for Miss Indian World, a 5-day competition attracting competitors from across North America. It's an experience, she says, made her want to excel in all areas of her life, something she hopes comes across during this competition.
It was a little bit intimidating because I thought, I want to be like that. I want to speak my language on a better level. I want to know my culture on a better level. Come maybe a year later now, I do help with our language, I help with our culture, I help with our kids, and that's something that I hold very special to me.
Conus Watney is from Red Pheasant Cree Nation. She has a background in competitive dance, theater, and drama. She also works with youth and hopes to inspire the younger generation that they can do anything they set their mind to.
To be able to be a person that people can see themselves in, coming out on the other side with the hardships and things like that, to be able to reach places like this. I'm just hoping that I can be a good role model in that sense.
Lauren Bear is a member of the Muskeg Lake Cree Nation. She's excited about Miss Indigenous Canada because the qualifications are more varied, allowing for a more interesting competition.
And it's so inclusive, they're open to mothers, and even if you're married, if you're two-spirit, there's no discrimination, you know what I mean? And so I feel like that opens a lot of doors for a lot of women who might feel like they wouldn't be able to in a regular pageant.
Miss Indigenous Canada is a 3-day event and takes place July 27th on the Six Nations Reserve in Ontario. And unlike many pageants based on looks and modeling, this one is strictly based on how competitors represent and serve their community, as well as their cultural involvement. A truly unique experience for everyone. Mick Fable, CTV News, Regina.
James E. Fournier is an Inuit poet from the Northwest Territories living in Iqaluit, Nunavut. He's our featured poet today for Indigenous History Month. Here he is reading his Kilanawak, a love letter acquainting himself with Inuktitut creativity.
Kilanawak, just like heaven. Kilak means sky or heavens. Kalutik means water dipper. Ngwak means lightness. Kalutingwak means big dipper because it looks like a water dipper. So, for example, Kilami mumikaw-yugok. We danced in the sky. Kalutingwak uvangalu. The Big Dipper and I. Pualukituk. The one who has lost his mitt. Stardust spins like snow globes as we turn foolish, foolish, foolish am I. Smiling underneath streetlights as we progressive step like chessmen across the board to greet each other upon the hesitation steps. Pausing in this happy valley, this rocking cradle asway at the end of worlds. Ikalmanyaktunga, I will remember. Kungagusit, the way you'd smile, a wondrous hook into my heart, pulling me close, closer, closest. Kanituk, Kaininixak, Kanilak.
Thank you, Jamesy. We're always looking for your feedback or story ideas. Here's how you can reach us. If you have a story you want to share, don't be shy. Send us an email to news@aptn.ca. To read and watch our stories you may have missed, go to aptnnews.ca. You can find us online on your favorite social media sites, including TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and X. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. Winnipeg Free Press columnist Niigaan Sinclair is back on the show today to talk about his brand new book. We'll tell you all about it when we come back. Over on the East Coast, St. John's 15 with rain, Charlottetown 16. The Grand River 9, Nuujiwak 6, sunny there. Val-d'Or 4, St. Jovite 11 with sun. Toronto 12, North Bay 6. Sioux Lookout 16, Timmins 24. Puckatawagan 14, Churchill 19. Brandon 11, Barons River 14 with sun. Swift Current rainy and 9 there, Regina 15. Stony Rapids 14, Buffalo Narrows 11 with rain. Peace River 11, Grand Prairie 10. Red Deer 10, Medicine Hat 12 with sun. Tofino 12, Penticton 16. Dees Lake 10, Prince George 11 with sun. Beaver Creek 23, Watson Lake 13. Fort Simpson 13, Watee 11. Inuvik 4, Colville Lake 9. Baker Lake 8, Cambridge Bay 0. Iqaluit 3, Arctic Bay 4. Professor, columnist, and Truth in Politics panelist Niigaan Sinclair has just released his first book. Winnipeg, Visions of Canada from an Indigenous Centre is based on years' worth of Sinclair's columns for the Winnipeg Free Press. For more on the essay collection, we're joined by Niigaan Sinclair, who we interviewed earlier. Niigaan, thank you for talking to us today and fitting us in your busy schedule.
Yeah, Miigwech, thanks for having me.
Can you tell us about Winnipeg, Visions of Canada from an Indigenous Centre and how it came to be?
So the word Winnipeg is, people might think it refers to the city, and we actually talk a lot about the city because it's in the center of a watershed, which eventually becomes Winnipeg, which is the lake. Cree people named the lake Winnipeg because of the algae in there and the fact that everything flows into that lake, like going all the way to Alberta, Saskatchewan, Northwestern Ontario, into the United States, even into the Northwest Territories. And so we have everything ends up in Manitoba and becomes Winnipeg, that algae in the water. So it's about the ecology, it's about the land, it's also about all the humans and all the things that we bring to the table, the good, the bad, the great, the ugly. And really that's what Winnipeg is all about, the life in this place, all of those things, and really what makes complexity in the center of Turtle Island.
Yeah, here's the book right here. It looks great. I'm sure all of us are really excited for it. Winnipeg has been called ground zero for some awful things like the MMIWG crisis, but you also say it is ground zero for Canada's future. Can you talk about that?
So a number of years ago, National magazine came to Manitoba, Winnipeg, and called us the most racist city in the country. That's not true. What we are, but we've inherited the most amount of racism, perhaps here. I would actually say the North as well. But because of the proportional population, the fact that 1/5 of us here in Winnipeg are Indigenous, that means that we see Canada's racism. We see the impacts of the Indian Act. We see the impact of residential schools, and that turns into murder, missing Indigenous women and girls and Two-Spirit peoples, over-incarceration, the massive amount of Indigenous children in the child welfare system. But what happens is that because we are the first step of Canada's Confederation, the first province, the first treaty, the dispossession of the Métis, the imposition of the Indian Act. So we've been at this the longest of what Canada's violent policies have created. So therefore we've come up with the most amount of solutions at the same time. That's why you see neighborhood patrols. That's why you see youth who come out and vote and also go and redecorate and re-edit the statues in front of the Manitoba legislature. You see people who are dedicated Canadians, Indigenous peoples, working together, living together, and even marrying each other. And that's what you see in this place, and that's what the book's about.
So much history here in Winnipeg. It's pretty much ground zero. I've heard the Premier call it Nietzsche Central here as well. We in the media see a lot of the ugly things, but what is giving you hope for the future?
The book really talks a lot about conflict. You know, like for instance, a lot of people might know that Manitoba's economy was built on the slave trade of African Americans in the colonies way down that originally funded the Hudson Bay Company that brought the fur trade here. People might not know that Winnipeg used to be an Indigenous city called Nestawea of 14,000 people, and then people might not know about all the different histories that come and coalesce in this place. Really, what the purpose of what this book is intended to do is to try to get us to think about what does it mean to live here, what does it mean to experience life here, and then what does the future of Canada look like, because Indigenous peoples are growing the fastest, and most of them are between the ages of 15 and 35. 20,000 of them came out to vote in the last provincial election, and that election was only determined by about 25,000 votes over about 12 ridings. I wonder who those people who made that impact was, and I wonder who came out of that election as the victor. That shows you what the future of Canada will look like all across this country, because Indigenous young people are growing everywhere. And yes, in places like Ontario, they may be 1 in 11, 1 in 10, but they will eventually become 1 in 7, 1 in 6, as we become 1 in 3. The North is already 1 in 2. And that means that Indigenous peoples are going to be a tremendous force in Canada's future, and we can see it right happening in Winnipeg. It's almost like a prophecy.
Lots of great points to make in this book. What do you hope people take away from this book?
Hope. And I hope that what people see is that we have to have hard conversations, and this book is all about hard conversations. Talks about seniors neglected in a downtown Winnipeg seniors complex. It talks about what is it like to see encampments pop up in this city. It also talks about the tremendous challenge around fires. We have a huge issue around fires and impacting disproportionately Indigenous peoples. But it also talks about the Nowe-Odena project, multi-billion-dollar investment. It's talking about the fact that Indigenous peoples are entering beauty pageants. And it's talking about mermen in the north who are dealing with the suicide crisis in their community. And instead of putting their hands up in the air and doing nothing about it, they went out, put on merman tails, and tried to make their community laugh a bit. That's what it means to be a part of Winnipeg, and that's what it means to be a part of Indigenous life, the center of life, not just in Winnipeg, but I think the entire country.
Lots of great stories, and I've been following your work a lot, but finally, where can people pick this book up?
They can contact the publisher, that's McClellan and Stewart. They can go to independent bookstores like McNally Robinson in places like Winnipeg or Saskatoon. You can also order from them online. I encourage everybody to go out to independent bookstores, but you can also go online to the really big platforms and order it from there as well.
Niigaan, thank you for talking to us today about your brand new
book.
And that's your midday newscast for this Monday, June 10th. We'll be back again for your afternoon newscast in a few hours with more stories. Hi, miigwech, masicho. Thank you for watching.